Most of the Finnish people live in Finland, but there are quite many of us härmäläisiä around the world. And I'm not talking about Finnish tourists, but actual Finns that live abroad or people who have Finnish ancestry. As the aftermath of the Finnish migration to North America, there are somewhere around 600,000 people with Finnish ancestry living in that area. The first major migration movement to America from Finland started in the 1860s, and it is estimated that by 1944, 370,000 Finns migrated to North America. Why did Finns want to leave Finland? For many reasons. Firstly, life in Finland was not as easy as it is nowadays. Back in the day, information didn't move hastily, so you were unaware how the others lived. But when information started to go around quicker, many Finns noticed that they lived quite an ascetic life. Also, our eastern neighbors, who acted as the overlords of Finland, made sure that things were not too jolly in Finland. The stories in Finland told how life would be amazing in the USA, and many decided to pursue happiness and riches beyond the Atlantic Ocean. The overwhelming majority of those who migrated originated from Ostrobothnia, and there are a couple reasons for why. The employment rate in that area was quite heavily dependent on two things: wooden ships and tar. When some mad lad figured out that ships can be built from metal, wooden ships and the tar that was necessary for building those ships became obsolete. Thus, the unemployment rate skyrocketed. Now you were in a situation where you had to move to find a new job. You could find a job in Helsinki, but that was so far away that you might as well sail across the pond and get a fresh start. Some of those who migrated came back to Finland after they had stayed for a while, but some settled and never went back. So, as mentioned in the beginning, there are quite a lot of people living in North America with Finnish ancestry. And with this transition, we move to ad time. Kids nowadays are going around asking questions like, "Who's your daddy?" And that is confusing, uninteresting, and by my understanding, not connected to genealogy. But if you ask, "Who's the daddy of your granddaddy?" And that is still kind of confusing, but it is interesting, and actually genealogy. And the sponsor of this video can help you with that question, because with 90 million users, MyHeritage is the leading global service for family history research and DNA testing. Forming your family tree is really easy with MyHeritage Discoveries feature. I started filling my family tree with only knowing the names of my grandparents, and I managed to fill it with some of my great-great-great-grandparents. MyHeritage offers other handy features besides building your family tree, such as tweaking old photos by coloring, repairing, or animating them.
Future's now, old man.
You can also easily search historical records, which MyHeritage has more than 17 billion. Knowing your family and kin is important.
Gang, 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 gang.
If you sign up for MyHeritage, you get a 14-day free trial for all the features MyHeritage has to offer. If you decide to continue your subscription, use my link in the description to get a 50% discount. Ad over. Most of the Finns that migrated to Northern America went to the northern and eastern parts of the continent. It is easy to see why Finns preferred these areas, since they pretty much resemble Finland, or at least much more than California, for example. Finns formed their own communities, and you can actually find places that have Finnish names. In fact, there even is a place called Finland in Minnesota. So there was a big migration to Northern America throughout the years, but there were plans for far greater migration. In fact, there were plans to move entire Finland to Alaska. This secret operation was known as Operation Alaska. Not very imaginative. When the Winter War was going around, some US officials were quite concerned how Finland would manage against the Soviet Union. And you can't really blame them, because if you look up the numbers, things were not looking too good for Finland. So there was a fear that Finland would be annexed or completely wiped out, and this of course would have been quite a bummer. To avoid this troublesome event occurring, a plan to move Finland away from the Soviet Union's reach was made. But where would you relocate 3.7 million Finns? Well, the officials looked at their maps and noticed a few things. Finland is in the north. Also, Alaska is in the north. Could this work? Hell yeah, it could work. All you have to do is to get a couple ships to the northern parts of Norway, where Finns could embark them, and then sail across the Atlantic to the land of freedom and opportunities. So, the noble officials were ready to go through all this trouble just to help the poor Finns. Well, not exactly, because moving 3.7 million Finns to Alaska would also offer some benefits to the US. You see, when you own a land, and somebody decides to steal that land from you, you need people to defend that land. Alaska is quite a big chunk of land, and unfortunately, very few people lived there, so the US officials were quite worried about the defense situation of Alaska. Of course, more people would also be beneficial for the overall development of the area. Finns were thought to be the ideal migrants to Alaska. They had good reputation as honest people and hard workers. Because they were used to winter, the weather in Alaska would be no problem to them at all. But these plans were never put to action, as they never gained enough support and because Finns proved to be much tougher opponents to the Soviets than the world thought. There is one thing that I find pretty funny in all of this. If you move Finland to Alaska to avoid invasion from their eastern neighbor, guess which country is their new western neighbor?